teaches about Native Americans. And I want you to know this part of our history because people erased it. You even knew existed. It goes against everything Manifest Destiny teaches about Native Americans. And I want you to know this part of
Manifest Destiny.
I want to show you some things that I don't think you even knew existed. It goes against everything Manifest Destiny teaches about Native.
Manifest Destiny. Manifest Destiny. Manifest Destiny. Look it up. Or should I go look it up? Manifest Destiny. Maybe I should go look it up. Maybe I should go look it up. Maybe I should go look it up. Justified by who? Justified by who? I just try to ask him. Justified by who? Who justified? Justified by who? The three basic things manifest destiny, the special virtues of the American people and their institutions. The mission of the United States to redeem and remake the West in the image of agrarian American and irresistible destiny. To accomplish this essential duty. What effect did the idea of manifest destiny have on the United States? It forced the Native American people to abandon their land. It established the Oregon Territory in the Northwest United States. It caused people to fear European control in the Americas. Manifest destiny. Manifest destiny. Who started Manifest Destiny? Newspaper editor John O'Sullivan coined the term Manifest Destiny in 1845 to describe the essence of this mindset. Manifest destiny. Who okayed this shit? How did America acquire California? Was it manifest destiny? Territory of what it is? Guadalupe Hidalgo ends. Hidalgo ends. The Mexican-American War, founded on February under the treaty. Mexico also recognized the United States annexation of Texas and agreed to sell California and the rest of the territory north of the Rio Grande for $15 million plus the assumption of certain damages claimed. The fuck? Who led Manifest Destiny? What up, Keisha? Who led Manifest Destiny? U.S. President James K. Polk. James K. Polk is the leader most associated with Manifest Destiny. Manifest Destiny inflamed sectional tensions over slavery, which ultimately led to the Civil War. Manifest Destiny? Why don't y'all give us a real definition? They won't give me a real definition here. Why don't give me a real definition? Manifest destiny, the 19th century doctrine or belief that the expansion of the U.S. throughout America content was both justified and inevitable. It's inevitable. You can't stop it. It's bound to happen. This New World Order shit right here told you to live through the New World. Manifest destiny. Give me a real definition of this shit. Manifest destiny in the 19th century, U.S. believed that the country, and more specifically, the white Anglo-Saxon race within it, was destined to expand across the continent. What continent? I thought it was a country. I thought it was a motherfucking country. The continent of America. In the 19th century, U.S. believed that the country and more specifically, the country, and more specifically, the white Anglo-Saxon race within it, was destined to expand across the continent. I thought it was a country. Continent. Democrats used the term in the 1840s to justify the war with Mexico. Huh? What is it? Is it a country or a continent? The continent of the Americas, the Western world. Yeah, hey man, why they won't give me a real definition though? What are the three parts of manifest destiny? I want the real definition. There are three basic things: manifest destiny, the special virtues of the American people and their institutions, the mission of the United States to redeem and remake the West in the image of agrarian America. Agrarian? What the fuck is agrarian? An irresistible destiny to accomplish this essential duty. Agrarian? Hell, have me looking up shit all morning long. Agrarian? What effect did the manifest destiny have on the United States? It forced the Native American people to abandon their land. It forced the Native American people to abandon their land. It established the Oregon Territory in the Northwest United States. It caused people to fear European control in the Americas. Agrarian, hold on, y'all. Hold up, y'all. Agrarian. Definition of agrarian. Oh. Okay, agrarian. Relating to cultivated land or the cultivation of land. Brazil is rapidly diversifying its agrarian company. A person who advocates and redistribute and what it is, advocates a redistribution of land, property, especially as part of a social movement. A person who advocates a redistribution of landed property, especially as a part of a social movement. Agrarian? How you gonna rebirth, reborn, retard, redistribute? How you gonna redistribute some land? If you redistribute it, that means somebody already there, motherfucker. Y'all see this shit? Manifest destiny. I want to see if it's going to give me the right definition, because I know the definition. Manifest destiny. Manifest destiny was a widely held belief in the 19th century. Belief. That's a good word. Belief. Widely held belief. In the 19th century United States, that its settlers were destined to expand across North America, the continent. There are three basic themes to manifest destiny: special virtues in America and their institutions. Look, when you get off into manifest destiny, understand, when you want to know who is the authority behind manifest destiny, y'all know who that is, right? Y'all know who that is, right? Who gives the people the authority behind Manifest Destiny? What is the authoritative figure behind Manifest Destiny? They told you a belief. They told you belief. So they God still talking to them. The same one they made up. I'm beginning to think that book, goddamn. Hey man, I believe I done caught 500 years of they fuck shit. I believe I really have.
Native Americans, and I want you to
listen to this shit.
I want to show you some things that I don't think you even knew existed. It goes against everything Manifest Destiny teaches about Native Americans.
Manifest Destiny. Manifest Destiny teaches us. You hear this, man?
And I want you to know this part of our history because people erase it. And we'll get
Manifest Destiny.
Knew existed. It goes against everything Manifest Destiny teaches about Native Americans. And
you hear that? Manifest Destiny. Agrarian. To the redistribution of a goddamn land. Redistribute. Run niggas off the land, then redistribute the land. That's how goddamn old girl people was able to come over here on them damn ships and claim land. They redistributing the land out to their people. The people that's coming over here is they motherfucking low life coming over here living, putting the shit that they done been through on us. The people they own people that they had enslaved. The low life, or the whatever you want to call them motherfuckers. Put their ass on ships, gave them property, sent their ass over here. And the same thing that was inflicted on them, they inflicted upon us. In our own goddamn land. That's why I don't tell you what the fuck.
And I want you to know this part of our history because people erase it, and we'll get to that later on in the program. Erase it intentionally. Erase it intentionally.
Erased it.
That's an important part of it. The cover-up of...
Nigga say erase it intentionally. Wow.
Even knew existed. It goes against everything Manifest Destiny teaches about Native Americans. And I want you to know this part of our history because people erased it, and we'll get to that later on in the program. Erased it intentionally. Erased it intentionally. That's an important part of it.
The cover-up of, let alone Native American sites. Why would so many people be covering up the evidence of earlier civilizations in the Americas? I think some people have called it a colonial cover-up, a colonial archaeological conspiracy.
There's two sides to this story. In one side of the story is the way America was conquered by basically Anglo-Saxons, and in that conquest of the Americas, what they confronted was an indigenous people who had inhabited that realm for tens of thousands of years. We know, and the first thing they did was to attempt to exterminate
tens of thousands of years, and the first thing they did was attempt to exterminate these people. Exterminate these people. That's some Hitler shit. Extermination. Exterminate these people. The first thing they attempted to do was exterminate these people. And then start tagging them and tell them they was from Africa and tell them they African Americans and all other kind of shit. Now you're a Negro, you're a nigger, you're African American, you all kind of shit. Besides the motherfucking original indigenous copper tone America that was already here. Ain't that a bitch? You're scared of truth, bro.
them physically, to get them out of the way. And when that became objectionable, the next measure was to exterminate their culture, to rub it out, to pour scorn upon it, to say that it was of no value. That it...
Wow. The next step was to exterminate their culture. The shit you doing, all that, whatever the fuck you doing over here, that ain't what's going on. We finna manifest destiny in your motherfucking ass. We finna manifest destiny in your ass. Bitch, you better strike, bitch. Motherfucker.
sense, the absurd and monstrous argument was that the Native Americans deserved what was done to them because they were supposedly not capable of any high culture. We now know that that's completely untrue, and that was a conspiracy. That was a conspiracy to destroy Native American culture and thus to legitimize the conquest and the massive theft of land. And it carried on into the 20th century with the so-called boarding schools, where Native American children almost
carried on into the 20th century, what would be the 1900s. After exterminating your culture, after the redistribution of your own land, running you off your own land, exterminating you off your own land. They couldn't do all the exterminating they want to do. Now they're gonna exterminate the culture. Then into the 1900s, now they're gonna start just come snatching up the kids and running them off the border schools and teaching them that and what they call indoctrination. And what they call indoctrinate you into their system. All this done by manifest destiny. It ain't the same people who wrote the book. Manifest destiny. Manifest destiny. The authoritative figure behind manifest destiny is God or the Jew. That's who gives them this authority. They're destined to expand and take over your motherfucking land.
All of them were taken away from their families.
We've talked about
hundreds of miles away and put in schools and taught that their culture was rubbish and indoctrinated with Western.
We've actually talked about.
Thankfully, some artifacts in ancient cities yet remain, such as these once city walls, intentionally preserved as mounds in a golf course in Newark, Ohio.
I'm standing here at the parallel walls that connect the gigantic octagon with a large circle. The circle is 1,054 feet in diameter.
Say what?
The octagon encloses 50 acres,
What?
which is large enough to encompass 4 Roman Colosseums. This was built by the ancient Hopewell culture that lived in this region between...
What? 4 Roman Colosseums? Went over there and goddamn perpetrated that Roman Empire bullshit. Wrote themselves into some shit. Then had a goddamn Renaissance period where they made that shit come true. With all that faggot ass artwork and shit. All that mythological ass god shit. To stamp this shit in your motherfucking forehead to make you think this shit true. Fuck a Roman Empire. That shit wasn't shit. They wrote that shit into existence. That shit wasn't there until they wrote that shit into existence, man.
about 100 BC and AD 400.
The level of precision.
100 BC? 100 BC? Exactly when that goddamn book came out in the goddamn 1st century BC, nigga. I mean, first century AD, nigga.
It is incredible.
The entire Newark earthworks encompasses 4.5 square miles, and it was the largest complex of geometric earthworks ever built in the world. It includes 2 circles, a gigantic octagon, a square, and actually what we call the Hopewell culture, things like it at least, and things related to it, covered much of eastern North America in different parts. As far south as Florida, as far west as Kansas City, as far east as perhaps New York.
They had to be incredibly sophisticated to be able to build these mounds perfectly, in unison to an octagon shape.
Where the fuck is MJ? MJ love talking about them mounds, and I love to hear her talk about them. I love to hear MJ talk about them mounds. The mound people. The indigenous people. Know what they do with them mounds now? They build malls and shit on top of them mounds now. You'll never know it. You driving to the mall going right on up on the goddamn hill of your fucking ancestors.
In a circular shape.
It's clear that they rival, by any scale, any other cultural achievement in the world. The Great Pyramids, the Great Wall of China, the Roman Colosseum.
I'm not that surprised by it. There's so many other things that we see when we start learning about and looking into Native culture that I think people on the surface may be surprised because they tend to think of Indian people as anti-intellectual or, non-scientific or somehow...
non-melanated. Shut your ass up.
Living in the backwoods and not knowledgeable about things like that.
The knowledge embedded in these earthworks and encoded in their structure is anything but primitive. It's remarkable.
It also shows that not just high math, but these sites are lined up primarily with the lunar calendar. They had high math, they understood geometry, and because of the lunar calendar, they also understood the heavens, astronomy.
A circle inside an octagon.
What I've learned now is just how amazing they were in terms of their knowledge of the solar system and of mathematics.
And then they had a unit of measurement was 606, which they call the stade. One side of the Great Pyramid from the base to the tip of the apex is 606 feet. If you square inside the octagon, which the surveyors like to call, it's a term they use, squaring the circle.
Don't tell me the art. Don't tell me the the mathematicians of the indigenous land goddamn had the motherfucking mathematics that taught. They gave the structure and the structural balance of a pyramid. Don't tell me that's what the fuck they finna tell us, right? The circle and the octagon. Don't tell me that's gonna be the mathematics that goddamn construct the pyramid. Don't tell us that. Don't tell us that shit.
And you divide that up into 4 equal parts inside of cubes, you'll find those cubes are all made of 606-foot lines per cube side. The angle of the
606. 606. 606. Oh, we scared of 6. I'm sorry. I ain't mean to spook y'all. I ain't mean to spook y'all with the 6. My bad. Go ahead, come on.
Great Pyramid of Egypt runs 51.8 degrees up the slope from the base to the angle. That measurement is there. And when you come off of the baseline at Newark and you run true north and then measure that angle back to the baseline, what do you find? 51.8 degrees. So did they have the same math as the ancient Egyptians?
What did he say? True north? Hold up. What the fuck is true north? I ain't gonna stop it no more, y'all.
Up the slope from the base to that angle. That measurement is there. And when you come off of the baseline at Newark and you run true north and then measure that angle back to the baseline, what do we find? 51.8 degrees. So did they have the same math as the ancient Egyptians?
That shit going straight up in the air. That shit ain't going straight up off the paper. That's going straight up in the air there. Know that.
Well, I gotta say, yeah, it sure looks like it.
All right, so quickly I want to read from this newspaper article that I found. It was from it says here, the Kansas City Journal. From Monday, October the 12th, 1896, and the title is Prehistoric Man, the Human Race and Its Dispersions. How long has the earth been people, and when and where was the beginning? Alright, so we've been doing a lot of research, right? Correlating a lot of things that, America is the true old world. Alright, more and more evidence is just going to keep coming out. We're just going to keep finding all these investigations, studies, articles, documented, recorded, historical chronicles, and information, right, that existed that never was taught to us. All right, so this is one of those. All right, so let's see what they have to say in this article. All right, because we are talking about a lot of Egyptian resemblances here in America, and the truth is that this is the source, this is their origins, and that's why there is some resemblances here to all the old world civilizations. We have all that here. All right, it's not just like we're similar to Egyptians or we're similar to the Hindu or all that. It's everything, because this is the source. So from here it's spread out to the rest of the world. All right, so let's see what they say right here. All right, so I'm just going to belly flop to this part of the article, and it says, after correlating all data that have been made public to the present time, all right, the conclusion is unavoidable that the oldest civilization was in the Yucatan and Central America. All right, again, the Kansas City Journal in 1896 wrote this. They're telling you that if you really do the research and you start compiling all this information, all this evidence, it's unavoidable, all right, that the oldest civilization was in the Yucatan, Central America. Future discoveries may change this conclusion. It seems that Egypt was first peopled by immigrants from the Yucatan. Say what? It seems that Egypt was first peopled by the immigrants from Yucatan. Space will allow only a few facts that clearly indicate the truth of this assertion. First, the pyramids of Yucatan are some of them much larger than any found in Egypt. Alright, much larger than any found in Egypt. That of Cheops not accepted. Alright, and Giza. Second, the pyramids of Egypt bear structural evidence of having been modeled on those of Yucatan, notably of the one at Coloma, which covers 23 acres. Third, the early Egyptians and the Mayas of Yucatan had the same system of reckoning time, but the Mayas developed a system that was far superior. Again, we got that in the Foreign Quarterly Review, right? Far superior or excelled. And which antedates that of Egypt is older than Egypt.
Damn. Now we can get rid of the word contemptuous. Contemptuous. Meaning existing at the same time. No. We done found the original. Right here in the motherfucking New World. Nigga, we done made it through the New World Order, nigga. This time, they're going this is on one world shit. They're gonna 7G your motherfucking ass. 5G, they're gonna 7G your ass. Shit.
Alright? Fourth, the Mayas manufactured cement that was of the same material as that of ancient Egypt. Fifth, the architecture of Yucatan is of the same general type as that of an ancient Egypt, but it is finer and seems to have been the model that the Egyptians attempted to imitate. They attempted to imitate our models from here, America. Six, the art of both countries, as displayed in their ceramics and architecture, is of the same type or school, that of Yucatan, being much more highly developed. Alright, again, this was an article written in the Kansas City Journal, Monday, October 12, 1896, if you want to look it up. Prehistoric man, they're telling you straight up in this article back in 1896 that we were the source, we were the cradle of civilization, and we went and colonized Egypt over there. Just like Thoth told us in Atlantis, the Emerald Tablets, right, and the green Emerald Tablets, right, he told us he went over there, right, to the sons of Chem. Alright, we got the Masonic book on the last video, right? What did it tell us? That this is the original Egypt. And when we're talking about prehistory, we're talking about America. That's the Masons. That's one of their most sacred books. Ancient Mystic Order. Alright? Foreign Quarterly Review. At Mitlan, there exists the remains of a palace, which is of considerable extent.
I ain't too early in the morning for this shit. I hope not.
Its architecture, though distinguished by characteristics peculiarly American and different from that of any nation with which we are familiar, is to our view marked by features of stately grandeur and melancholy beauty. The roof of the portico, it's supported by plain, cylindrical columns, no type of which we believe elsewhere exists. It doesn't exist anywhere else. The facade of the palace is covered with a beautiful matwork of basket scroll, which is a characteristic ornament of all the Toltecan monuments, which is often found in the sepulchral chambers of the same extraordinary people, and which Rossellini, by a singular coincidence, found in those of Egypt, among others of the magnificent scroll ornaments, copies of which decorate his liberations. Again, so they're telling you they're finding these symbols, these hieroglyphs, these designs, all right, and scrolls from Egypt. All right, again, where is the duplicate? It it is curious that the ground plan of this palace is the Egyptian Tau. Again, it is curious that the ground plan of this palace is the Egyptian Tau. All right? The Egyptian Tau. Again, the T or the cross, the Tau, Taf. It's Aboriginal, Paleo-Hebrew, one of the letters, right? The cross sticks, where energies intersect, a sacred place, a monument, the emblem of the Garden of Eden. The city of gold, X marks the spot, right? All right. Finally, statues sculptured in a purely classical style, unlike the rude deformities of Mexican art, have been found in the neighborhood of Otumba, Mitlan, Xochicalco, and the magnificent flower temple of Oaxaca, or Waka, right? Waka, Wakanda, sacred place. These are not the works of barbarians, as Robertson intimates, all right? So these weren't barbarians building these, having no metal implements to work with. This misconception is the result of the before-mentioned confusion of two eras. And this confusion continues today. We gotta break that. We gotta really do research. Oh, wake up. Open mind. You gotta prove your theories. You gotta really research. Alright? It is true that the Mexican semi-barbarians produced their root sculptures with stone utensils, but the civilized people who preceded them worked with copper implements, some of which have been discovered in their tombs. Alright, so they're clearly telling us that there's two different kinds of people here. One with science, architectures, math, civilization, and another one that came after that has just simple, as they say here, let me see, rude sculptures with stone utensils. They didn't have so are those the Mongols that came later on, right? Most likely. Vases agreeing both in shape and ornament with the earliest specimens of Egyptian and Etruscan pottery have been found in their sepulchral excavations. Moreover, evidences of an amount of civilization and of social comfort which are not to be found among the popular and boosted monuments of Egypt are furnished by the architectural memorials of this great, singular, and almost unknown people. They're talking about you, the aboriginal so-called Negro that was here. And they say that you are unknown, and they say that you disappeared, and they say that you came from Africa. Alright, so again, this guy's just saying, there's evidences of amount of civilization and social comfort which are not to be found among the popular and boasted monuments of Egypt. It just shows basically what he's saying. You're just seeing pyramids, but you're not seeing the whole town, the whole city, the aqueducts. Where's everything else? You can find that in Mexico. They just found 60,000 structures in the jungles of Guatemala. Well, they just released the information to us. Who knows how long ago they know about it? 60,000 structures, right? With this was a metropolis. It basically rewriting history. Millions of people lived there. Clean streets, aqueducts, highways, fortified, monuments. All right? Dig into it. Roads are to be found not only in the vicinity of their great cities, but at considerable distance from them. Like I just said, all these ancient ruins are all connected by roads and highways in the middle of the jungle. That's what they're realizing today, this year. They're letting us know. And this book is from 1836, this article. Why didn't they teach us this in school? Who knows? We might have become archaeologists. We might have had an interest to dig into this stuff, to our own history, knowing that it was greater than Egypt and vast and magnificent and grandeur, we would have probably been the archaeologists discovering and writing about this today. All right? But we weren't given that chance. They told us everything was over there and that side over there. You want to be an archaeologist? You want to study history? You got to go over there to study in Oxford. Then you got to go to Egypt. Then you know, everywhere else but here. All right? Again, roads are to be found not only in the vicinity of their great cities, but at considerable distance from them. Artificially constructed like the Roman military roads of large squared blocks of stone. These roads, on the same principle as the railroad, affect a continued level. They are in fact viaducts, as contrasted with aqueducts, which these people also constructed, where they traverse acclivities. They are parapeted, and the evidences both of regular posting stations at regular intervals and of the regular division of the distances upon the principle of our milestones upon turnpike roads are still to be observed. Bridges constructed of the same durable materials and traversing mountain torrents are also to be found. Where is all this in the so-called old world and the other side in Egypt? Where is all this? High science, high civilization. In these bridges, an approach to the principle of the arch and keystone may be in a few instances discerned, but generally they display the primitive and obvious form of architraves of stone, superimposed on two or more piers of the same massy character and durable materials. Every feature of these structures is at once singular, ingenious, and gigantic. Ingenious and gigantic. Cyclopean in the forms of their masonry, they are characterized throughout by the same titanium character of wild and exaggerated grandeur.
Take the Mississippi Valley civilization, which plays an important role in this book. The famous sites are sites like Cahokia or Poverty Point, or the Ohio sites such as High Bank and Newark. Amazing, huge, massive, large-scale destruction of these ancient monuments. They were not considered to be worth preserving. The needs of agriculture and industry were more important. So what we can say is that round about 90% of the monuments that were in the Mississippi Valley in, say, 1700 are gone now. They're not there. So archaeologists, in drawing their conclusions about that culture, are drawing it on a tiny fraction that's randomly left by chance from the mass-scale wipeout that was caused. And then, when the archaeologists come to it with preconceived ideas about what sort of culture it should be, that's another form of censorship that imposes itself upon the past. We should let the past speak for itself.
The book is called Forbidding History by J. Douglas Kenyon. All right? The Central American Mystery. What could explain the failure of mainstream science to unravel the origins of Mesoamerica's advanced ancient cultures? Will Hart. The Olmec civilization surprised me the most. I had read about the Maya and knew of the Aztecs, but I was surprised for what I found in Villahermosa. Large stone heads with negroid features and stone stelae carved with depictions of curious ambassadors. The figures clearly were not from any Mexican culture. These artifacts were more than just a fascinating puzzle. They represented a headache for science. They were an anomaly. Who had carved the heads? Who had created the stele? Where did they get those models for these heads and figures? These were questions that arose because of their way scientists had reconstructed the human history of Mesoamerica. Okay, so look what he says. Africans don't fit, nor do the cloaked Caucasian figures carved on the stele. They shouldn't be there. However, they are surely there. Alright, so like he says, these are questions that arise because of the way scientists have reconstructed the human history of not only Mesoamerica, but the whole world. Our whole chronology, our whole history, our maps, everything has been flipped around. So people think that a person of copper color or so-called Negro can only come out of Africa, and also that everybody came out of Africa. That's a theory again, right? So, with that perspective, it's hard. That's why these people are have questions, and it's mysteries to them. But this is the true old world, and the aboriginals, the so-called real Americans or indigenous people of this land, were so-called Negro, right? From many parts, and different shades of the copper color, right? Different shades, all over the Americas.
The so-called Amazonian cities.
Yes.
So London around the 16th century, 60,000 population. There were cities there.
There were enormous cities in the Amazon. This is another piece of the new evidence that's overwhelming the old ideas. Because the old idea was that there were no humans in the Amazon until about 1,000 years ago, that the Amazon, although it's a luxuriant rainforest, has poor soils, and that it was impossible for human beings in large numbers to survive there. We now know they did, and the reason we know they did is tragically because of the clearances of the Amazon. So much of the Amazon has been cut down, and in those areas that have been cut down, evidence of enormous cities has emerged. Cities with populations of tens of thousands, bigger than London at the same time. And not only that, but evidence of high science, geometric geoglyphs on the earth on a scale of hundreds of meters, squares, circles. They even performed the exercise that we attribute to the ancient Greeks of squaring the circle, a very sophisticated geometrical exercise. You can see that done on a scale of hundreds of meters in the Amazon.
All right, so we're back in this journal again, the Kansas City Journal, Monday, October 12th, 1896, right? Prehistoric man, right? We're going to continue with the article. It's a very long article, so I wanted you to see, this is the whole page actually right here. Let me just zoom out so you can see. I got the whole page right here. I forgot where I saw this. I think I saw it in one Google Plus page that they took down now because Google Plus doesn't exist anymore. And I followed up on it, and I actually found the actual article. But when you go look for the article today, the archive website says they're under maintenance. It should be back in a few seconds, and it's been days. So yeah, they don't want you to see this. I'm just gonna zoom into a part right here. Alright, so we're going to read from this part right here where it says they left a splendid literature. Alright, so it says they left a splendid literature, most of which was destroyed by the Spaniards at the time of and immediately after the conquest of 1510 to 1531 or 21. But much remains today. From what survives, we learn that these ancient people based their historical epics on astronomical phenomena. All right, so listen up, astronomical phenomena. A certain thing occurred so many days before or after a total eclipse of the sun, which was on a given day, year, and hour. Astronomers of today can calculate these eclipses and verify these historical data. They say that these eclipses occurred on the days and hours mentioned, and that they were visible in the Yucatan. All right, so they're saying that it correlates their mythology when they're talking about their eclipses and everything in these Mayan codices. They're able to date back following what astronomical data that they have, modern day astronomers, and they calculate that these eclipses did happen in the time that these Mayans are saying. And it says now there is a connected written history of the country that reaches back about 9,700 years. Whoa, this is way before Egypt, Mesopotamia over there, right? Babylon, all that stuff, right? 9,700 years. Back of this are many interesting traditions and some glimpses of a splendid mythology. According to one of these traditions, a portion of the Mayas about 40,000 years ago rebelled against the ruling king and finally withdrew to the north. It says this branch seems to have passed along the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, and to have reached Louisiana. So it says they went through the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and got to Louisiana. It's 40,000 years ago, they're saying, in these codices they're finding, right? These traditions, astronomical traditions, all right? Again, they went through the Gulf of Mexico from Mexico and reached Louisiana in the lower Mississippi Valley between 30,000 and 35,000 years ago. All right, so what are they talking about? Mayas? Space will allow but little in the way of proof of this last assertion. A few years ago, some caissons were sunk for bridges piers on Bayou La Forche, Louisiana. At a depth of about 62 feet, some graves were uncovered. They had been made on the sandy beach of the Gulf of Mexico and had been covered with oyster shells. The present coast is about 110 miles from the point. The average thickness of the freshwater mud so far as surveyed is not less than 40 feet from this point to the Gulf Coast. Taking the average amount of solid matter mud that has annually passed down the Mississippi River to form these delta and Gulf plains, and we have a measuring unit, so they're calculating, all right? See what they're telling you, how they calculate it. United States government observations made daily since 1872, if I remember correctly, gives the annual amount at 57,872,000 cubic yards per year. By this unit, these graves are at least 29,000 years old. All right, you see what this paper is telling you in 1896? All right, and the Mississippi River contributes to this. And by this unit of measurement, which they have, scientists can, record, these graves are at least 29,000 years old. All right, 29,000 years old. From the lower Mississippi, these people spread over much of the central portions of the North American continent, especially throughout the valleys of the Ohio and Mississippi and the lake regions. Where are they finding all these mounds? Right? It just described most of the places where most of the mounds are found in the United States. They seem to have been the original mound builders, like I just said. They seem to have been the original mound builders, and he's saying they came from the Mayas of Mexico. Many thousands of years after they left Yucatan, there was another great efflux of people from Yucatan that passed north through the center of the continent. From these last descended the so-called Toltecs, Aztecs, and their modern successors, the Pueblos Sunis, Moquis, etc. This last wave rolled on towards the north until it met the reflux wave from the mound builders. Settlements further north, and then a terrible war was waged. At some future time, perhaps, I shall discuss this war, and the evidences of it still in existence. I hope to be able to call attention to many of the achievements of the ancient Aztecs and their contemporaries who constituted the principal element in the wave of immigration last above mentioned. For many of the facts pertaining to the Mayas of Yucatan, I am indebted to Plongeon, who has lived and observed in that country most of the time since 1874. So far as many of the relics, other data are concerned, and other data is concerned, I have observed them for myself. The facts are, there are literature. Alright, so he's saying he didn't just find, he's seen these relics, he's seen these records they found in the Yucatan, he's seen all the stuff that Le Plongeon is talking about, Augustus Le Plongeon. Alright, so he's saying that these facts are, there are literature, art, and sciences that have left their evidences in North America that are more ancient, alright, more ancient and more worthy of careful study than any of that afforded by either ancient Greece or Rome. The time will come, alright? Remember, this is written in 1896, October 12th, 1896. Alright? That's what, about 123 years ago? Alright? Now listen to what he's going to say right here. The time will come when a classical education will include this study. My people, it's right now. This is the class. Right? You don't have to go to no college, university. Alright? The time will come, the time has come when we are basically including this in our studies, that this is the true old world and you are the ancient one, the original, the so-called antediluvian. So again, this was an article by Edwin Walters from the Kansas City Journal, October 12th, 1896. The Kansas City Journal, 1896. 1886. This is on page 6. If you're interested to go look that up. Page 6, prehistoric man, the human race and its dispersions. Alright, the Maya, civilized. The Africans, Asians, and Europeans.
But America in the age to do so. So what you do is you depict them as savages, and you say that actually we're doing them a favor. You know, there's a quote I put in the book concerning the horrific project called the boarding schools project in America, where Native American children, about 90% of them, were physically removed from their families and stuck in boarding schools in another state, far away. Punished if they wore any traditional clothing. Given the whole ideology of Westia, if we take the entire cultural memory banks of the indigenous inhabitants of the Americas and deliberately wipe them out.
Yeah. Foreign Quarterly Review. Now continues, says, these facts being admitted or established, the question is, do the monuments of New Spain, as displayed in the illustrations of the works under review, correspond with 3 unvarying and identifying characteristics? Our reply is yes, they correspond entirely. Some of the pyramids, as we have said, are larger than those of Egypt. Some of them are different in their model, having somewhat of an Indian character, bearing strong affinity to pyramidal temples still extant in Japan. And it says, see the works of Sir Thomas Raffles for that. The Pyramid of Cholula exhibits a most singular identity with the model of the temples of Belus. Okay, so again, the Pyramid of Cholula exhibits a most singularly identity with the model of the temples of Belus. Belus Jupiter, Bel, Tower of Babel, described by Herodotus, in which by many scholars has been considered to be the scriptural Tower of Babel. Right? It consists of the 8 graduated square towers, each rising above the other, and terminating in a topmost sanctuary, dedicated apparently to the same solar god, but there are more singular analogies between the forms of some of the pyramids of New Spain and some of the most ancient pyramids of Egypt. Among the pyramids on the plain of Saqqara is one consisting of 4 graduated steps. The illustrations of the Antiquities Mexicanas furnish a copy of the Mexican pyramid of exactly the same form and nearly the same dimensions. So again, which one is the duplicate? They try to tell us that, you know, this is that these Aztec and Mayan temples are a lot sooner, that they are not as old as the Egyptian pyramids, but we're crushing all this illusion, all this hijack, chronology-wise, history-wise, right? So again, the illustrations of the Antiquities Mexicanas, and that's the book I told you, this 9-volume book by Lord Kingsborough. You know, it's available online. Just Google it. You know, says it furnishes a copy of the Mexican pyramid of exactly the same form and nearly the same dimensions as the one in Egypt and the plain of Saqqara. I look it up. Again, descending galleries at a particular astronomical angle of declination lead to central chambers, either for the purpose of mystery or sepulture, in the Mexican pyramids as well as the Egyptian. Quite enough has been said to prove the architectural identity. It is fair to infer that tribes of the same architectural family built both. Okay, again, it is fair to infer that tribes of the same architectural family built both. In that case, they would be contemporaneous, but the evidences of the same affinity or identity multiply as we proceed. So he just said that means they would be living or of the same time at least. Okay, so he didn't say Egypt is older. He's saying this is basically concluding that they were at least around the same time because they have the same kind of technology, structures, architecture, language, the hieroglyphic system, everything. All right, so but we know this is older over here. All right, so because remember, his hijack from what he thinks is the truth is that the old world's on that side. So his perspective and orientation is different than ours. All right.
Okay.
And quite apart from the lies you've exposed,
I wouldn't want to call them lies. I don't think that the archaeologists have deliberately lied. I want to be clear about that. I think, honestly speaking, that the majority of archaeologists who held to that old model that has now been completely discredited honestly believed what they were saying to be true. They felt that that's what the evidence said. And then their careers became connected to that idea, and they became very reluctant to accept any idea that threatened that. And I think it's more that natural territoriality of human beings rather than a deliberate attempt to hide the truth of the past from us. But the effect has been as overwhelming or worse than a deliberate attempt to cover up the past, because 100,000 years of the human story has just been completely shut down until now.
All right, so now we're in this book, all right? It's called Queen Mu. We're going to know who Queen Mu is, all right? And the Egyptian Sphinx by Augustus Le Plongeon, MD. All right, so this is Augustus right here. All right, so Augustus Le Plongeon spent a lot of time studying the Egyptians and the Mayas. I believe before he, got into the whole Maya thing, he was studying a lot of the Egyptians, and he noticed a lot of things very similar to the Mayas, and that's what got him to go over to the Yucatan. So this is one of his books. Let me just show you other books he has, just so you can get a reference of this person. So he has this book. It's called The Mayas, The Sources of Their History. I just skimmed through it. I haven't really read it too much, but basically he's listing out all the people, all the sources, all the scholars, all the explorers who's basically written anything about the Mayas, right? So he's quoting them so you can see who talks about them, and then he has his little accounts, as it says here, by Dr. Le Plongeon, Yucatan, his account of discoveries. This is written in 1877. All right, so this is another book he has. It says here, Sacred Mysteries Among the Mayas and the Quiches, 11,500 years ago. Their relation to the sacred mysteries of Egypt, Greece, Chaldea, and India. Freemasonry in times anterior to the Temple of Solomon. Illustrated by Augustus Le Plongeon. So now I just want to, right here says, he's the author also of a sketch of the ancient inhabitants of Peru and their civilization, vestiges of the Mayas, essay on vestiges of antiquity, essay on the causes of earthquake, religion of Jesus compared with the teachings of the church, the monuments of Mayaks and their historical teachings. All right, so this book right here is 1886. A lot of dropping here. We're going to definitely get into this book. All right. All right, so this is another book of his. It's called Vestiges of the Mayas, or Facts Tending to Prove that the Communication and Intimate Relations Must Have Existed in Very Remote Times Between the Inhabitants of Mayab and those of Asia and Africa, by Augustus Le Plongeon, member of the American Antiquarian Society of Worcester, Mass., of the California Academy of Sciences, and several other scientific societies, author of various essays and scientific works. All right, so is this guy, can we consider him a scholar? Well, you're gonna see all the research he did. All right, this is not pseudo. All right. All right, so remember, I just wanted you to get a little background of him, because we are going to go into some deep stuff in this book, and basically he's going to correlate everything we've been learning, well, everything I've been learning personally in this journey I've had since I started my channel. And it's amazing to find books like this. It's amazing to know that there was actually explorers, whatever their background, Freemasons, if they were evil or not, or if they were racist, whatever, but what they found here cannot be disputed. What they wrote down here, the proof and correlation, can't be disputed. All right, this is the stuff that they never put in your textbooks. They don't want you thinking like this. Again, remember the last video, Manifest Destiny. Anything prior to Columbus was considered savage. All right, they weren't going to consider it for historical purposes. All right, Manifest Destiny. All right, so let's get into this book. And so let's begin. We're here in the preface. In this work, I offer no theory. All right, this ain't no theories here. In questions of history, theories prove nothing. Alright? They are therefore out of place. I leave my readers to draw their own inferences from the facts presented for their consideration. Alright? So just look over the info. Whatever be their conclusions is no concern of mine. One thing, however, is certain. Neither their opinion nor mine will alter events that have happened in the dim past, of which so little is known today. Alright, so anything that I say or you say will not change anything. If you agree or disagree with any of this, it still doesn't change the truth. Alright? A record of many of these events has reached our times, written by those who took part in them, in a language still spoken by several thousands of human beings. There we may read part of man's history and follow the progress of his civilization. The study in situ of the relics of the ancient Mayas has revealed such striking analogies between their language, their religious conceptions, their cosmogonic notions, their manners and customs, their traditions, their architecture, and the language, the religious conceptions, the cosmogonic notions, the manners and customs, the traditions, the architecture of the ancient civilized nations of Asia, Africa, and Europe, of which we have any knowledge. That is, has become evident to my mind, at least, that such similarities are not merely effects of hazard, but the result of intimate communications that must have existed between all of them, and that distance was no greater obstacle to their intercourse than it is today to that of the inhabitants of the various countries. Alright, so he's saying, just like we're reading in the Foreign Quarterly Review, what they found in Palenque, they found a lot of similarities with all these, nations and places in the world, these continents, all these people living in those continents, the so-called old world, right? He's saying the same thing. Augustus, right? He's saying the same thing. It's evident. There was intimate communications, all right? They're related somehow, but it's basically what he's telling you. It has been and still is a favorite hypothesis, which certain students of ethnology, that the Western continent, now known as America or AMURIKHAN, received its human population, therefore its civilization, from Asia. All right? So remember, this is written in the 1800s. We already know, archaeologists, scientists, historians, like Graham Hancock said, are admitting they had it wrong. The Clovis thing, they had it wrong. All right? They found human habitation over 130,000 years ago. All right? At least. So that whole Asia, out of Asia, Bering Strait, that's false. And he already knew this at this time in the 1800s. True, there is a split in their ranks. They are not quite certain if the immigration in America came from Tartary across the Strait of Bering or from Hindustan over the waste of the Pacific Ocean. This, however, is of little consequence. There are those who pretend, like Klaproth, that the cradle of humanity is to be found on the plateau of Pamir, between the high peaks of the Himalayan ranges, or like Messrs. Renan and Barthélemy Saint Hilaire, who place it in the region of the Tamils, in the countries where the Bible says the Garden of Eden was situated, while others are equally certain man came from Lemuria, that submerged continent invented by P.L. Sclater, which Haeckel believes was the birthplace of the primitive ape man, and which they say now lies under the waves of the Indian Ocean. The truth of the matter is that these opinions are mere conjectures, simple hypotheses, and their advocates know no more when and where man first appeared on earth than the newborn baby knows of his surroundings or how he came. The learned wranglers on this shadowy and dim point forget that all leading geologists now agree in the opinion that America is the oldest known continent on the face of the planet. All right? Boom! That came out of nowhere, right? But we've already read and heard who? Louis Agassiz, the most renowned geologist, tell us that America is the first land, is the true old world. All right? And what is Augustus telling us? right? That all the leading geologists now agree, not just one, all the leading geologists now agree in the opinion that America is the oldest known continent on the face of the planet. That the fossil remains of human beings found in various parts of it, far distant from each other, prove that man lived there in times immemorial, and that we have not the slightest ray of light to illumine the darkness that surrounds the origin of those primeval men. Alright? We got in the past videos, right? How they're finding human bones in these deep layers, right? They're supposed to be millions of years old, right? Alright, so at this time, all geologists knew this was the real oldest continent, the oldest known continent on the face of the planet. Plain. Furthermore, it is now admitted by the generality of scientists that man, far from descending from a single pair, located in a particular portion of Earth's surface, has appeared on every part of it, where the biological conditions have been propitious to his development and maintenance. Alright, he's telling you not just in Africa. No out of Africa theories here. Again, he told you in the beginning of this book, this ain't about theory. And that the production of the various species with their distinct, well-marked anatomical and intellectual characteristics was due to the difference of those biological conditions and to the general forces calling forth animal life prevalent in the places where each particular species has appeared and whose distinctive marks were adapted to its peculiar environment. Alright, we've been talking about this in these lives we go on and in the back chats. You know, how could, the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom have diverse, different family species all over the world? They're not all the same. So it'll be the same for humans. Like he's saying, this is what he's trying to tell you, is the same. Alright? Humans did not just come out of one place. Alright? The Maya sages doubtless has reached similar conclusions since they call their country Mayak. That is, the land first emerged from the bottom of the deep. Alright? The Maya, they knew this was the oldest land, Mayak. Right? We got Agassiz, right? Louis Agassiz, who told us this is the first land out of the primordial waters. Alright, now the Maya, they call their country Mayak. That is, the land first emerged from the bottom of the deep. And we read in Genesis, right? Let there be land. Let the waters subside. Let the land show. And there was land. The first land, America. The country of the shoot. And the Egyptians, according to Herodotus, boasted that their ancestors in the lands of the West, alright, were the oldest men on earth. Alright, quote Herodotus. Go research that. He's telling you that the Egyptians, their ancestors in the lands of the West. So if you're in Africa, America's to the west, were the oldest men on earth. If the opinion of Leo Humphrey and a host of modern geologists regarding the priority of America's antiquity be correct, alright, so I didn't even know about this guy, Leo Humphrey. Study him, alright, a known geologist in that time. Be correct, what right have we to gainsay the assertion of the Mayas and of the Egyptians in claiming likewise priority for their people and their country? Alright, so the Mayas are telling you they are from the oldest land. Alright, and the Egyptians are telling you that their ancestors come from the West, which is the oldest man on earth, which will be the oldest land, right?
And so what a cosmic event that took place across the whole world. And then consider what did that obliterate? What did that event obliterate? What did it wipe out from the human story?
It's just a lost civilization. You've always talked about this.
You see, when you're looking for a lost civilization, and I mean a civilization, something that we would recognize as a civilization, I'll tell you directly, I don't think they flew to the moon, and I don't think they had airplanes. But I think that we're talking about a civilization more than 12,000 years ago, which was as advanced as our civilization was, say, in the late 18th century or early 19th century. In other words, they could navigate the world. They could explore the world. They could measure the Earth accurately. They had precise astronomy. They could create beautiful maps that were accurate in terms of latitude and longitude. That kind of level of civilization. I think that's what was sitting there. Now you need a place where such a civilization can evolve, and you need to explain why archaeology hasn't found it yet. And I've considered many possibilities over the years. Back in 1995 with Fingerprints of the Gods, Antarctica looked very interesting to me. Later I became very interested in what's called the Sunda Shelf, which is the area of land around what's now the Malaysian Peninsula and the Indonesian islands out to the Philippines. That was a continent-sized landmass that was above water during the Ice Age and is underwater now. Very interesting to look there and see what's going on there. But one place that nobody ever looked, precisely because of the ideology, precisely because of what we've been taught about the Americas, was the Americas. Nobody looked there. It was not considered worth looking there. And I think that's a huge mistake, because the Americas stand out as a candidate with this amazing richness of resources. And then the second thing, because of the character of the Ice Age, there were long periods when the Americas were cut off from the rest of the world. Cut off from the conflicts and the difficulties going on in the so-called Old World. What a beautiful and amazing place for a civilization to evolve, a civilization that was separate, that was different, that had its own way of doing things. That is one of the reasons why I think we need to take America very, very seriously, because we now know that the archaeological story we've been taught about the Americas is complete and utter bullshit. Complete and utter bullshit. Complete and utter bullshit from beginning to end. Clovis was not first. Clovis was a latecomer to the Americas. We know that archaeology has not had its eye on the ball because of Clovis. They've not been considering the pre-Clovis ages. It's only now that they're beginning to look at what happened before Clovis. So they've just closed their eyes to all of those possibilities. And then, of course, on top of that, you have the massive destruction that took place in the Mississippi Valley and across the Americas of Native American culture and of Native American memories.
All right, so we're back in the book Queen Mu and the Egyptian Sphinx by Augustus Le Plongeon. All right, 1896. It is to the monumental inscriptions and to the books of the Mayas that we must turn if we wish to learn about the primeval traditions of mankind, all right, the Mayas, the development of civilization, and the events that took place centuries before the dim myths recorded as occurrences at the beginning of our written history. Historians, when writing on the universal history of the race, have never taken into consideration that of man in America, okay? Like Graham Hancock told you, there was a doctrine, a dogma. And historians, when they were talking about the universal history of the race, of the human race, they never took into consideration that of man in America and the role that in remote ages American nations played on this world stage. The importance, what we did, what we provided. Have you not read the American Indian contributions to the World Encyclopedia? Have you not read that? How important and what influence we had and what we, the role we played in the world stage. Again, and the influence they exerted over the populations of Asia, Africa, and Europe. All right? Amaru Khans, Amaru priest kings, the Amaru priest kings, the role they played on the world stage and the influence they exerted over the populations of Asia, Africa, and Europe. Still, as far as we can scan the long vista of the past centuries, the Mayas seem to have had direct and intimate communications with them. This fact is indeed no new revelation, as proved by the universality of the name Maya, which seems to have been as well known by all civilized nations thousands of years ago as is today that of the English. Thus, we meet with it in Japan, the islands of the Pacific, Hindustan. Now remember, Hindustan, that's the real name of India. Okay? Asia Minor, Egypt, Greece, Equatorial Africa, North and South America, as well as in the countries known to us as Central America, which in those times composed the Maya Empire. Alright, all of Central America. The seat of the government and residence of the rulers was the peninsula of the Yucatan. Alright, so that was like the capital, the epicenter, the Yucatan, but they ruled the whole Central America. Wherever found, the name Maya is synonymous with power, wisdom, and learning, alright? Wherever you're gonna hear or see this word, Maya, it is synonymous with power, wisdom, and learning. Peace, Shalom. Peace, everyone. Yeah, it was a good night, lad. I feel like it was a good vibe. We had a lot of fun. We learned a lot. You know, we were here. We were gathered. We were united. You know, that was wonderful. That was awesome, you know. No static, you know. We ain't here to debate. We ain't here to see who comes out with info first, who brings out more info, who's been here longer. It's not about that. We're here to build. And I just wanted to finish, you know, my recap of my Aboriginal series called From Indigenous American to African American. 20 parts that I have on YouTube. So I wanted to, you know, shrink it down a little bit and, you know, because there's a lot of hours and hours of information. Maybe everybody doesn't have the time and a lot of new people. So again, this is part 2. You didn't get part 1 yesterday. You know, make sure to go back. You know, it doesn't matter when, but make sure you get that. All right. So just waiting for everybody to come in. All right. For the moment, just bear with me. We can do a little slideshow on my Instagram real quick. looks like we got a good crowd now. Make sure everybody got the notification. You know how YouTube is. Alright, right here as we look at a so-called Tijuana Indian from Mexico. Look at her. Alright. What is this right here? This is the sign of the hero twins based on Mississippian culture. Shell engraving from a spiral mount site. Copy, it says. Alright. Alright, look at this. This Mexican soldiers at Mexico, it says. Alright, look at the complexion. Those are Indians, by the way. And that's a mission. That's where they kept the these missions. Alright, look at that. Don't that look like Buddha? Look at that. Mexican pottery. Alright. Naga. Mashpee Tribe, Cape Cod, 1929. Who's this right here? The Cacique Chief Kanagapol Ching and his wife. This is by Samuel Hook Wilcock from 1766. And I'm asking you, do you remember who you are? Do you remember? Yesterday we went over a lot of information. I hope you guys saw, mainly who the Spanish and Portuguese were enslaving. We're going to continue a little bit with that discussion. We're going to talk about a lot of things tonight if we have the time, It's a lot of information, 40 hours we're narrowing down, to about 10. So, all right. Just want to go ahead and begin. Just bear with me. Shalom, familia. I wanted to remind everyone, who we're talking about when we're, referring to ancient Americans. Because, we've been going into the enslavement of the indigenous people of America. Because we know now, that as soon as Columbus and these invaders came in 1492, they began their real transatlantic slave trade, sending American Indians over to Europe and West Africa and to their colonies here in the Americas. In these next 3 parts, we will discuss the process of enslavement of the American Indian, the change from indentured servitude to chattel slavery. This is an untold part of history that was not told to us in school. All we got is images and stories of, like West Africans, being enslaved, chained up, and dropped off on this side. Well, real history, what can be researched and studied, it tells a whole different, foundational truth. Always known you've been here. They knew from the beginning They've been playing their games, for hundreds of years, little by little, removing you, taking your identity, taking your land until you're a foreigner, until today now you're an African American. But they always knew you just gotta go dig into the history. Too many depictions all over the place, and these are not allegorical. You can go to certain maps, and it's not going to say allegorical. It's going to say Native Americans, portrait of American natives or Native Americans, right? And you'll see what they're drawing, like this, all right? Known who you've been and what they did when they came. All right, and we have here New Netherland Institute exploring America's Dutch heritage. All right, I just want to show you here something. It says here, you see the image, Indians of New Netherland. All right, let's zoom into it. It says Indians of New Netherland, 1671. Artist unknown. It says artist unknown, but I believe this is from John Ogilvy's drawings from his book. Alright, look at this. What do you see here? Do you remember who you are? They have the records, they have the history. They're playing dumb. These are secret societies. They are lying to you in your face. They know who you are. You're the only one that doesn't know. Wake up. Look at this. Look at his hair, complexion. Look how they're dressed. Look how they're dressed. Again, don't let them play dumb. They've always known who you are. Alright? Always known who you are. Alright, so let's take a look at this image right here. Alright, it says America. Alright, what do you see here? Alright, so let's get a little bit of the information of this image. I just want to show you guys. It says here, allegorical figure of America. So dodge the hijack, allegorical, right? It's always allegorical, but they always keep putting so-called Negro as America. Why do they keep doing that if it's, Don't believe them when they talk about allegorical, because at the time they drew these, they weren't being allegorical. Native American woman seated on an alligator holding a cornucopia. The cornucopia of plenty, right? Just like in Assyria, in Egypt and all that, in ancient Greece and Rome and all that, that's where they get the name for corn, because that's where they had the grains for the maize, cornucopia. Alright, you saw my corn videos. And a parrot and attended by 4 figures representing different natives. Alright, so 4 figures. Alright, so 4 figures, right? 1, 2, these 2 right here. You see the different complexions? See your hair. Alright, and then these other 2. You see their different complexions, right? You see the hair. Alright, you see some more over here. And you see the Spaniards coming out of their ships, right? Bringing Christianity with them, Jesus are deaf. That's what they told your ancestors. Alright, but see how you were living? But you see when they came, how you were living, right? Cornucopia, the plenty, you had so much foods. You had fertile soil, you had greenery everywhere, rivers, clean water, gold in the rivers. Look at the gold they're giving them. You see that? Look how you were living. You see her? This is not allegorical. This is what they encountered when they got here. Alright? In the background, European soldiers arrive from a ship and erect a cross and are greeted by Native Americans with golden vessels. Cultural artifacts include war clubs, feather headdresses and garments, ornaments, bows, spear, bird, headdresses, and dwellings. Also include a wool spear, shells, sacks of gold. It says here, notes, the image of Europeans being greeted by Native Americans is taken from Theodore de Bray's depiction of Christopher Columbus' landfall in the New World. This print is one of 4 allegorical prints, each representing Asia, Europe, America, or Africa. Time period, 1701, 1750. Alright, John Carter Brown, University Collections. Do you remember who you are? They've always known who you are. That's why they played those games